So, look, massive thanks for joining myself this afternoon. I'm going to be with Ranjan Bhattarcharya. I think it's his first time on Instagram Live. I'm amazed at that. So hopefully any second now. Ria has joined me. Ranjan, how can I get you on board there? Let's see. I'm just trying to see if I can for joining myself this afternoon. So Ranjan's going to be with myself on Monday morning. In fact, on
How you
Monday.
do it? Wow.
What's that?
No, it's good tech.
Yeah,
I've been on Instagram Live on my own, but never with someone else. So that's, I didn't know you could do this stuff. Good.
yeah, definitely. So, look, massive thanks for taking time out, both today and also on Monday. So, Ranjan, of course, everyone knows who you are. You're from Baker Street Property Meet, which you can see on a regular basis. It's live streamed on YouTube. You had one of my favorites on Wednesday. God, I'm going to upset Helen, aren't I, if I don't call Helen one of my favorites as well, particularly if she listens to this. Evan, though, so I've been to see Evan's site so many times, possibly more than his project managers, maybe. I doubt it, though. But let's go on to the topic of retail. And what do you think are going to happen long term or even medium term to what people see as a potential decline in retail? And people don't see a decline in retail, that the decline has been here for a number of years. Probably the catalyst, though, COVID-19. This morning I shopped for a new t-shirt. I like this t-shirt, to be fair. It reminds me of the holiday I was on just a few months ago, pre-COVID. I didn't think that was going to be the only holiday of the year, but likely to be. But what do you think is going to happen to all these empty shops? Or is it just a bit of an exaggeration? Do you think it's going to turn to residential? What are you looking at opportunity-wise as well?
No, a good set of questions. I think there's going to be a massive change in retail, and it was an existing trend that has kind of accelerated because of COVID-19. But what we're going to see over the coming year is a massive oversupply of retail because we had some shop closures, but we also have an issue of not all shops are going to come back when we come out of lockdown. And this is not even little shops, it's some big shops. Boots announced recently that when they come out of lockdown, they're going to shut down 61 of their least profitable stores. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, to be fair.
And many of these chains are going to do the same thing, where they'll say, no, we're coming back, but we're losing X number of stores. So they're going to be, and obviously a lot of new businesses will think carefully about whether they're opening up new stores on the high street. People have got used to more the online stuff. So in the short term, there's going to be a massive glut of retail. The big problem is that in the areas of low demand, which don't have affluence, there are lots of areas in the UK which are not prosperous. And the problem is that in those low value areas, it's also economic to convert those properties into residential use. I mean, we're all talking about how to repurpose commercial buildings, and that's great. That works in areas where there's a certain amount of prosperity and also value to the underlying real estate. So there are areas where it's going to cost me more to convert a retail unit into a couple of flats than the value of those flats. So those are stuffed, and there's no point repurposing them to a restaurant or something because there's no customers there because no one's got any money. So I don't know what's going to happen to those areas. But what we are talking about is areas where there's affluence. And by affluence, I mean the immediate catchment area, the house prices should be at or above the national average. So where you're dealing with areas where the average house price is in excess of a couple of 100,000, there should be hope for those repurposing retail units. And a lot of that space is going to become residential. and the rest will become service sector orientated. But the giant portion is going to become residential. But what we're going to see is this blip where there's an excessive supply compared to demand for the next year until it all adjusts.
So you see an adjustment of 12 months?
At least.
Not a bit longer? At least.
At least. Because the economy is going to be stuffed. And what has always happened in every single recession, and I've been through a few of them in my 30 years, residential property picks up first, commercial lags behind. So what happens is, as the job market improves, residential prices get firmer because people can go out and buy. Then you find that the business premises, commercial premises follows on after that. So we have to wait for the job market to return, for property prices to start stabilizing and going in an upward direction before commercial property recovers. Plus, you've got the thing of increased commercial supply, because the big crux of commercial property is going to happen in June. The commercial next second rent quarter day is due, and remember, no landlords have been given any help with commercial loans. All the help has been given to tenants. So the question is, if landlords have got commercial loans and things, how many can survive without receiving 2 successive quarters of rent? The thing with commercial property as well is a lot of people who own commercial property, obviously it's not their home. So when they get into trouble elsewhere, so let's say, I'm a business person and whatever, and I've got a commercial premises that I let out. If I have to shore up my ship and keep my empire afloat, this one commercial property that I've got as an investment is typically the one that I'll cash in at a time of trouble. So we will see, for all sorts of reasons, a massive supply of commercial property coming on the market. And there's only so much the market can take.
I was going to say, Ranjan, it's interesting, Boots 61, because I've not seen those figures at all, so I'm curious to know where you've seen that.
Which figures?
Boots 61
oh, yeah.
to go.
That was in the FT a few weeks ago. They just said that's what one of their people announced, 61 stores there. But they've got a lot of stores. 61 is not many.
So the second question is, so some people are looking at the opportunity of retail to office, and you explaining to me before we went online, it may not necessarily always work. So do you want to explain why you believe that?
Well, I think that where it will work is repurposing large stores. So if you think about a former Debenhams or whatever, multiple floors, big floor plate and all the rest of it, it can possibly work. The thing with serviced offices, you need a certain quantum of space to make it economically viable, because you have to have staff on the ground and all that sort of stuff. So it tends to be 10,000 square foot is the minimum. And the other thing is, with a lot of these larger stores like the former Debenhams buildings, they don't have any windows. They've just got a couple of windows at the front. You might as well repurpose an old office block as serviced office accommodation as opposed to a former retail store. So there are places where it will happen. It'll be very site specific. It'll be very, very site specific, but it will be the larger stores that would fit well with that sort of repurposing.
It's interesting because before this panel, putting together, I put Alex Schlagman, who's very different from yourself, from Save to High Street, and I was expecting some fireworks. Maybe some fireworks will still happen on Monday morning, but the way I see it, before I spoke to Alex a couple of days ago, yesterday, was he's going to have a very different viewpoint from yourself. But I think the viewpoint from yourself and from him is actually probably closer than it has ever been. Alex is very much into retailers using the modern technology, but he also admits that some changes, massive changes, will take place as well. So look, we've briefly looked at retail. I know lots of us are joining right now.
You know what it is, Brendan? I think it'd be a very interesting discussion on Monday. I'm coming at this much more from the property investor point of view and the property entrepreneur point of view. And here's the thing, and this hasn't changed. Recessions mean that there's an oversupply of commercial property. That means that they fall in value. There's the differential then between residential values per square foot and commercial values per square foot widens in a recession. And that will happen quite a bit. And that means that there is a fantastic opportunity to pick up commercial real estate at low values per square foot over the next year, 18 months, and seek to repurpose those. Because it's logic, really, because if something drops significantly in terms of price per square foot, and you don't have to cash flow it that much in order to get it covering its costs. But as soon as a recovery happens, your cash flow improves dramatically on that rental, on that square footage that you've bought. You're renting out far more, you're achieving better rents on it. And then your yield and your margin that you're making compared to the purchase costs price becomes huge. And obviously the value increases dramatically as well. So I look upon this as it's just classic recession play, which is good commercial square footage of space in good solid areas where there's a massive differential between the commercial per square foot compared to the residential per square foot, and try to repurpose as much as you can.
Ranjan, just briefly for the listeners there, I did promise Ranjan it would be 15 minutes. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Ranjan, for your own Baker Street at the end of June, have you confirmed, or is not being confirmed yet, who's going to be? Is under wraps?
No, it's not under wraps. It's a bit of a exclusive, really. It's the first time I'll have ever said. What we're going to do is our theme is going to be how to get started in property in 2020, how to get started right now. And we're going to cover that theme with 4 experienced people. And from the point of view of, if they were starting today, they're all saying, there's tons of opportunity and all the rest of it. But if you're starting today, what exactly would you do? So what strategies are worth following? What would you do if you have not much money? What would you do if you've got £100,000 to invest? What's realistic goals for you to set for the next year and also for a 5-year plan? So those sort of common questions that people ask when they're getting started, we're going to tackle them from the point of view of starting today with a panel who has certainly lived through a lot of recessions and is very, very experienced. So it'll be a great session, Wednesday, 24th of June. June. And I've asked, who have we got on the panel? Myself, Matt Siddell, Mike Frisby, Helen Chorley will be discussing those 4 questions and 4 topics aimed at people getting started today.
Oh, so Helen's back again.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Second time in a row. Interesting. So look, as I say, I promise Ranjan it'd be nice, short, sweet. Sounds good, even for experienced investors. So that's a comment. I don't know if can you see those comments?
Yes, I can. And he's absolutely right, because when the market's turned, we've gone from one phase in the market cycle to the next. So it is a new rule book. So whether you're experienced or new, we're all starting with a clean sheet in terms of strategies that are going to work and what's realistic to be achieved over the next year and the next 5 years. So it is a good point, yes.
And just to summarize, Ranjan's going to be on the panel this coming Monday morning. So it's at 9:40 we kick off. You can find out more on my website, bequinevents.com. Look, it's going to be not even myself asking the questions. I passed that on to Aaron Yahara. He will ask a completely different range of questions to what I'd ask. And delighted, we've got Susie Carter, former CBRE, on board. I was discussing with her this week. She goes back to the 1990s in CBRE, working in the West End, Regent Street back then. Was responsible for the likes of Hammerson as well. Very, very noted pedigree. So that's on Monday morning. Delighted we've got one of the partners at Lendwell. So Karen Bennett's going to be on board. I think she was a partner, director at Shawbrook as well. So Lendwell, lots of the people who founded Shawbrook moved over to create Lendwell, including Stephen Johnson, who joins me, I think, on the 15th of June. I mentioned Alex Schlagman, and he's the one who sort of, I thought would be very different to your view. But I have to admit, both of you, similar views. Alex Schlagman from Save the High Street, and I'm sure I've missed off someone. I've missed off Peter Hingenbottom from Planning Insight as well. So it was Ben Richards who said, I need to get a planner on board. So I listened to what Ben said, and that's why Peter has come in from Planning Insight, just give his insight to what's going to come up in terms of permitted development, extending permitted development for retail to resi conversion. Ranjan, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm looking forward to it because I think there's a breadth of experience on the panel, and I think and I think you've got a good panel together because I think the future of retail is a very mixed conversation. It's mixed geographically because there are different problems, as I mentioned, in low value areas to high value areas. It's also a different problem. You mentioned the lady with the CBRE experience at Hammerson, and repurposing these big shopping centres that Hammerson own and people like Into own these. I can't remember which shopping. They own one of the Trafford centres and massive indoor shopping centres. And
I think they've also got some centres in London.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. But I think Watford is
yes,
an
yeah, that's true as well. So their share price has literally collapsed in the last couple of years. They were trading at £2.60, £2.70, and now they're under 10p a share. And the reason for that is because the rents have fallen, the footfall has fallen, and if you picture, say, a William Hill betting shop on the high street, I think most people can see how you can easily repurpose one of those units. But into Watford, what do you do with it? And that lack of repurposability has affected the share price so dramatically because what do you do with that space? So the issue with retail is split between the mega shopping centres and the smaller shops, and then from low value areas to high value areas. It's a massive problem, and it's a different problem for all those four spaces.
I was going to say, I heard Piotr Ray's on his Monday, or not Monday, but his morning show. He talked about a similar issue. And he mentioned co-working, and there are places in Europe, I think even in Poland it is, Piotr's Polish, so I think it's in Poland where people have actually established co-working spaces in large shopping centres. Obviously the space is still huge for co-working, there's no, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any co-working site in Europe which is the size of an Inn2.
I think I would be very surprised if they're doing that. They're probably repurposing a store within, because that's already happening in the UK, where some of these shopping malls, a store has been repurposed into a co-working kind of space.
Yeah, a store within
it.
The shopping
center. Yeah. So it might have been home to an old Debenhams or something, but that's happening in the UK too.
In terms of shopping centres?
Yeah. I mean, one of your former panelists, William Stokes, his Reading one is actually right in a shopping centre.
Well, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
That's very different. Well, for me, it's very different because it's beyond my knowledge base. Ranjan, so people can reach you from coming along to my event on Monday, so I'm delighted that you're going to be there. We've mentioned Baker Street Property Meet. We've mentioned June the 24th. I wrote down the date. Ellen, Mike Frisbee, and Matt Siddell. That's focused on strategies in 2020 and beyond.
Yeah. If you were starting out today, what are the things that you would need to consider? So, what's the realistic goals for the next 1 and 5 years? What strategies that people were talking about last year, which are waste of time today, and what strategies you should focus on today. What do you do if you haven't got a lot of money, and what do you do if you've got £100,000 and you want to invest it? So those four questions will be the we'll formulate the discussion around that. So that's basically the format of our live stream. We tackle a theme, we tackle a few questions that people really want to know about, and we discuss it among four people who have been around the block and can offer some input.
I'm not sure Max Siddell's been around the block that much, though.
Yeah, he's done a fair bit in his time.
He looks quite young.
He's done a fair bit in his time.
Okay.
So a valuable contribution for more.
Sure. Look, I don't want to get myself in any afternoon. And massive thanks for joining myself on Monday, the 1st of June. It's already June on Monday. And I look forward to listening particularly to the words of wisdom from Helen. And it's great to see Mike back, because Mike's not been around for a long time. I think the last time he was around was probably at your event. So I think it's the first time he's going to be around in quite a while.
There are rumours whether he was patient zero or something, because he does feel he's had COVID.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you knew that, but that's what I did hear as well. So look, massive thanks for time today to those who joined me. Often, you know, I have the opportunity to interview leading property investors, developers, property professionals in the UK using this technology. I have to admit, pre-COVID-19, I just did lives on Instagram myself. I have to admit, I didn't know you could bring people into the conversation. I do like it.
I didn't know. Did you see that?
And the one which I see, which has really worked well in the UK, is Grand Designs Live. Kunle Barker worked with Evan. I think they had Kevin McLeod on Thursday night. I think there was about 150 people or something like that on the call. So massive thanks, Ranjan, and thanks to our listeners as well. Thank you.